It's Monday, January 15th. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. It is a hell of a day to talk ball, and joining me to do just that is, fresh off most of Super Wild Card Weekend, is Scott Pianowski. Scott, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Monday morning, we finally got a good game after 3 blowouts and a lot to unpack. A lot of interesting teams advancing, a lot of fascinating teams that are among the departed. And we have a lot to figure out.
We have so much to dive into and so much to figure out. Programming note here: our recap is going to be split into 2 parts. So this show is going to focus on the 4 games that happened over the weekend. Then we're going to have a pod later tonight after the Eagles-Bucks game to recap both of the games that are going to happen here on Monday. So look for that later on in the day. We'll also look ahead, of course, to the divisional round. But like you said, Scott, we have a lot to get into. And you know, even if you're so right that there's so much to unpack from both teams in all 4 games, that even if there were some blowouts, like I'm the type of person that sometimes I enjoy watching a blowout with certain exceptions, because there's just so many like fascinating takeaways and topics within that context of one team kicking the hell out of another. But let's start with the most competitive, the closest game: Lions 24, Rams 23. And man, just the encapsulation of this Lions rebuild, man. What a beautiful night for Detroit. What a beautiful night for Jared Goff, for Dan Campbell. And Scott, I know, you know, you live in Detroit. You've got close ties to the area or you're close to Detroit, right? Like you got close ties to the area and everything. So I'm definitely curious what your perspective is kind of on the ground. The lasting takeaway for me, man, is that final throw that Jared Goff made. That felt like the perfect, you know, it was like the perfect encapsulation of the Lions, right? Like it was the gutsy call. It was the route by Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was just incredible. Like outside running big boy routes against press man coverage. He was incredible all game long. And then the throw from Jared Goff, it was just like, yep, this is the new look Lions. They're here. And this was officially, I think, their arrival into the big boys of the NFL.
It was almost a shame when this game got off the number and you knew it couldn't go to overtime, because I would have been happy to see another quarter of football between these 2 teams. But so here's the thing, Matt. I moved to suburban Detroit. I'm basically 20 minutes from the city in 2001. And I have seen Stanley Cups here. I've seen an NBA championship. I've seen the Tigers go to the World Series. Michigan just won the college football championship. Michigan and Michigan State have had several good college basketball teams. There's a great sporting landscape here, and the Lions have done nothing. They've had the Calvin Johnson catch, and they've had all these bizarre losses, and they had a winless season, and they've hired the wrong coaches. They've had, you know, and when Matt Stafford came here and even got them to the playoffs a few times just to lose games, that was kind of a win. But now to have a home game and to be favored and win a game like this on a Sunday night, and I went into the city Sunday early, around lunchtime, early afternoon. I just wanted to get a taste of what was going on.
Yeah.
And I would say 80% of the people I saw were wearing Lions swag. I mean, grandparents and kids. And I was eating breakfast and I listened to a 9-year-old who was wearing Lions stuff, talking about the Dolphins and their Butts pickup and all this stuff. And I thought, how old is this kid? I thought he was like probably 15 or 16. I looked at him, he's like 9 years old. You know,
he's about to take our jobs, man.
For sure. Yeah.
So
he's got an application at Yahoo. I suspect that he'll be taping this pod in about 6 weeks. But if he can, you know, if we can tape it before he has to go to bed. But this place has, and football, why this Lions team is more beloved than any team I've seen in the last 20 years. And we're talking about championship teams. And why is that? Because this team has been down so bad. And football, it's the one game a week. You can look forward to it. You can target it. So it's very friendly for people who maybe aren't diehards, even people who maybe are casual sports fans. It's easy to be a football fan because you just, okay, I got to be free this one night and watch this one game and think all week about the Rams and all week about Matt Stafford. And I just feel a bounce in my step. I am a transplant. I grew up in New England. I still root for all those teams and all that stuff. But it just makes you feel good, man. It unifies people. People are happier. People are nicer to each other. Strangers are high-fiving each other. And I cannot say enough how great it just feels just to be part of that. And I'm so thrilled to get another home game.
I know, that's the coolest part. I think that was the first time that a playoff game had been hosted in that building. Right? I mean, this is the second time they've won a playoff game in my lifetime.
93 was the last time they had a home playoff game. 1993. You were even playing fantasy football in 1990. What were you, like in third grade then?
I was born in 1991, Scott.
Okay, so you were probably doing some receiver, some receiver analysis, but maybe not applying it to fantasy yet. Okay.
Yeah, right. I wasn't. I was not. I was charting, but I wasn't. Putting my money on it. Right. So
at one point, by the way, you were the 9-year-old I described. That was you at some point. You were in a restaurant saying, "Yeah, this guy, he's not really moving his hips right. He's not reading the option right correctly." What you said about St. Brown, by the way, I love that. So many teams would have run the ball and just drained the clock and said, "Nope, we're gonna go down swinging with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff and Ben Johnson, and we're going to get this first down, then we're going to kneel on it and get out of here." Love it. I love playing. What do we do best, right? The Lions defense, Hutchinson had a couple of sacks, and they did play well in the red zone. But what makes the Lions good is their offense. Let's win the game on offense. Let's not try to win the game on defense.
It's so crazy, man. Like the fact that team is so, Dan Campbell has talked about it, that he feels just so connected to the city of Detroit and so connected to the ethos of that town. And I think the team that he has built, he and Brad Holmes, who, by the way, Brad Holmes deserves a ton of credit, the general manager, for building this team. The team that they've built very much, I feel like, fits and personifies the city, which is so cool. And you love to see that. And it's such an easy group to root for, by the way, right? I mean, even if you're like me, like an outsider, I mean, I definitely had times this offseason where I was a little skeptical of all right, the Lions are opening the season, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we had that moment on the pod, they're really opening the season. And, I had questions about, well, they don't really have somebody on the outside, right? They don't have a true vertical X receiver type. And then at times this year, I'm like, can this defense really get them where they need to go? It turns out, yeah, should have been completely all in on the Lions, out kicking their coverage this year, because I think they really have done that. This is a team that in this phase of the rebuild, had they just made the playoffs, that would have been an accomplishment, because they did not make the playoffs last year. They were very close. They kind of won this is our Super Bowl type of game by beating the Packers to get them out of the playoffs in Aaron Rodgers' final game in Green Bay. But making the playoffs would have been an accomplishment this year. They've officially outkicked their coverage on that. And they're just loaded with good players, man. I mean, even if you look at the stat sheet, which, by the way, it's so nice to look back at the box score and not have to give a crap about it because there's no fantasy football. But watching Jahmyr Gibbs last night was incredible. And the guy had 8 carries for 25 yards, and he did score a touchdown, right? He had 4 for 43 as a receiver. But watching him, if you were following me on Twitter last night, I sent the tweet about what my wife said. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but he's just an incredible guy to watch. There's so many good players on this team. Aiden Hutchinson on defense haven't said his name yet, but he was a game wrecker in the final moments when he needed to be. Again, just home run after home run after home run for Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, and everybody involved with this team. And for Jared Goff specifically, man, you got to just feel so good for that guy. I don't care who you root for. I don't care what you think about his ceiling or where he ranks as a quarterback. That was to come back from what looked like this drive is making me a little nervous. The 3-and-out prior to the game-winning drive or game-ending drive, for him to come back out and end it like that was pretty critical for him.
For sure, yeah, he sailed that throw over Josh Reynolds' head the previous drive. And let me just unpack something. I'll own something that's been percolating on social media lately. I didn't hear it for a long time, but before the season, I wondered if we were skipping a step, putting the Lions in the opening game after they didn't make the playoffs the previous year. Yes, they were the second half champions. They beat Green Bay and Lambeau in the final week of the season, as you mentioned. I wondered if maybe we were a little bit over our skis in the Lions, and obviously, look, I was wrong on that. What can I say?
Yeah,
I don't mind being wrong on stuff. Matt, we give out so many takes and opinions and picks and ranks and leans and pound the table on this and fade that. You're going to be wrong on some stuff, and some stuff you're going to be bombastically wrong on. It wasn't that I thought the Lions were going to go 4-13. I just thought maybe we were skipping a step. Maybe they were a year away from having the type of season that they ultimately had. And as you mentioned, Holmes, right? He gets Sam Laporta right. He gets Amon-Ra St. Brown right. He gets Jahmyr Gibbs right. We'll see what happens to Jameson Williams, who's really a missing piece that they would love to see him spread his wings next year. It's not going to happen this year. It's almost like, it's cute when Jameson Williams gets a catch or draws a target. He's just an incomplete player right now. And we'll see. Obviously, he had a major injury at the end of his college career, and then he had the suspension. So it's hard to take his first 2 years at face value. But and you mentioned no fantasy. I'm still in there pitching and playing fantasy and playing a couple of I'm in a contest that Mike Salfino runs where you can use any player you want, but only once. So you have to try to figure out who's going to win the games and who's going to go out with a big score and all that stuff. And Detroit, if this were in season, we would talk about how narrow Detroit's usage was and how wonderful it is. Their box score is incredibly tiny. It's the pamphlet. It's not the phone book. It's the pamphlet they hand you at the airport. So, and good for Goff, man. When he was traded, when the Rams kind of said, okay, we've gone as far as we can go with this. And I think McVay lost confidence in him. I think Goff lost probably confidence in himself.
Oh, yeah.
He's back to Jared Goff's never going to be the MVP of the league, right? He's never going to be on the cover of Madden or anything like that. But he's good enough to be a high seed in the playoffs. He's good enough to win home games. He may be good enough to get to the NFC Championship game. The one thing that makes me just a little bit sad is that I love what Ben Johnson's doing here. And we know he's going to get interviewed by everybody. And man, I'll just be so sad if he's like, I don't know who's going to get the Carolina job. I don't know who wants it. Lousy owner, quarterback who might be bad. We don't have our first round pick. The market's kind of meh. Hey, you want to coach our team and you'll get fired in 2 years? Come on down to Carolina. But you look at what like Slowick's doing in Houston, what Johnson's doing in Detroit. I want more of that. I'm as a spoiled person. I don't want to stand in anybody's way for upward mobility, but I want to see more Ben Johnson, running the Lions show. It's just such a fun offense. And I'm sure they're probably one of the first teams you break down every week because they're really fun to watch.
Yeah, they're so fun to watch. I think just to close it out here on the Lions and the like skipping a step thing, it's really the fact that they've gotten not just instant impact from their rookies, which like they got an instant impact from even Jack Campbell on the defensive side of the ball. He hasn't been perfect all year long, but he's made plays in critical moments, and he's been like, as the season's progressed, he's been a good player. But then
everybody who thought Salem Porter was going to be tight end 1, raise your hand. Not tight end 1, the tight end 1.
And coming back and scored a touchdown when this is so questionable for this game. And
like I thought, for sure. I was in playoff drafts where nobody took him.
Yeah. Because like most people probably thought he wasn't going to play in this game. And obviously they get an instant impact from Jahmyr Gibbs. But then it's the fact that like, this is what's so beautiful is, and we'll talk about this with another team in the next game, actually, it's not just the great drafting and like Amon-Ra St. Brown, great draft pick, but that guy's gotten better every single year. It's the teams like this that you feel so good about are the teams that not only draft really well, but clearly coach really well and clearly develop talent really well. And that's why I think the Lions, if they've skipped a step, it's because they're so simpatico on that part of it. In the front office and the coaching staff. That's when you get these great teams. That's great to see. And I think that's why they've sort of skipped this step. And I mean, again, couldn't be any happier. It's awesome that they're here. On the flip side here, let's talk about the Rams who lose this game. And, it was a disappointing end for sure for the Rams. Obviously, they would have liked to make a run here. But like Scott, they're a team that I come out of the playoffs actually feeling really good about heading into next year because they've done the same thing where they've drafted really well. Like they've had these day 3 draft picks like Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams and all these guys hit. Matthew Stafford's still playing at the height of his powers. They've done the drafting really well thing and then the developing. So I kind of look at them as a team that, man, I'm really interested to see what they do in the offseason and how they can sort of try to take the next step in, phase whatever this is of Sean McVay with the Rams.
When you look at St. Brown and Nacua, famously a middle round pick for St. Brown, Nacua went really late.
4th and 5th round.
Teams going to be kicking themselves saying, we missed on our first round receiver, our second round receiver, and look what the Rams and the Lions came up with. And maybe it speaks to work ethic. It speaks to intelligence. Obviously, Puka talks about, he's in that breakfast club with the Rams. Famously, when Stafford went to the Rams, him and Cooper Kupp were having breakfast every morning and drawing out plays and talking about routes and everything. And Nacua just went there. He was a sponge. He said a lot of those meetings he didn't even talk. They talked about him like he wasn't even there. But
I know it's cool. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I love all of that. I'm so sad we don't get to watch that guy play anymore. And I think I said before we started, I'm going to overdraft Puka next year because I didn't have much exposure to him this year. And what a clinic he put on, man. He was uncoverable. I don't know what to make of Cooper Kupp. He's in his 30s, right? And he looked 35 in this game. I know he was hurt much of the year. Maybe he comes back next year strong, but I don't think I can draft him proactively. In this game, I mean, it's obvious who the one guy was, and then everybody else kind of fell into line, and who Stafford was going to when the money was on line. And to be fair to Puka, he was probably interfered with on the one pass he didn't catch, right? There's a little jersey tug they could have called it. I'm glad they didn't. It would have been maybe a little bit ticky-tack, but they could have called it. Puka, first round pick next year?
Yeah, I think he's got to be, man. And
maybe middle first round. Maybe not even like 11, 12. Maybe he's going like 6, 7, 8. I mean, Stafford and Sean McVay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I don't know what to do with Williams. How are you viewing Williams for next season? I mean, this is all in pencil. We're going to change our mind. At some point, we'll be doing mock drafts in the spring, and who knows? Maybe we'll walk it back. Maybe the Rams will draft pieces in the backfield. I don't know. But what's your first run on a Williams rank?
Man, that is a great question. And because it is wild how productive he was without playing a full season, for sure. Mm-hmm. I probably think he'll be, depending on where he falls, I think he'll be a proactive draft pick for me. Like, if he's a second round pick, that feels totally fair, depending on who else they add to the backfield. Now, I don't think that they can run him out for like 90% of the snaps again next year. I don't think he's going to get that level of workload because he's not built that way. Number one, I mean, he had injuries this year. There were injuries his rookie year. I think they want to keep him fresher. So I imagine they add somebody beyond like the Ronnie Rivers, Royce Freeman type. But I still think he's going to be a really good back who's a perfect system fit in this man gap heavy run scheme that they have transitioned to. He's perfect fit for that. And he's going to be tethered to a good offense. Like, those are usually guys I want to draft when they're good players that are in the like good. Now, I won't say apex part of his career, but like he's squarely in the good zone for running backs, right? Like, he's not a 26, 27-year-old guy we got to be concerned about. There are obviously the injury worries, but beyond that, he checks a lot of boxes for me.
So Cooper Kupp, he is 30 right now. He will turn 31 in June. This is one of those things, you want to be a year early, not a year late.
Yeah.
Dare I say it? I hate saying this. I thought Cooper Kupp should have been the MVP a couple of years ago. And, the NFL MVP has become such a stupid thing. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I've already bothered you enough all year about that. But has the cheese maybe even started to go bad a little bit for Cooper Kupp? I hate saying that, man. He's one of my favorite players. I'm sure he's a reception king. But he's 31-year-old receivers is not the way to build your fantasy roster. You talked about Williams, right? He's a young running back. He's on the escalator. And I think Cooper Kupp is obviously on the down escalator. And I don't want to it wasn't that long ago that Michael Thomas was the best receiver in football. Now we forget he even plays. I'm afraid that Cooper Kupp has a season like that percolating.
Yeah, I wonder what they do. Obviously, he's super highly paid. I think because they're so flush with, or they can be, especially if they move more money around, stuff like that, they'll be flush with cash to throw around, right? Like, I don't think they're gonna necessarily go back to the F them picks type of stuff, and they'll just start, pushing the chips all in, right? I think this is I loved Sean McVay's quote after the game where he said, I just love this team. I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have it right in front of me, but like, he said, like, I love this team so much. They essentially helped me find my way, right? But when we know he was like kind of like ready to walk away last season, and then he really fell back in love with coaching this young group, I kind of think they stick with this sort of young, steady model. At least that's my guess right now what the Rams do. And because of that, I think they can afford to maybe overpay Cooper Kupp a little bit. Like, I think he will be on this team next year. But I'm with you that I think that, to use your phrase, the cheese has started to go bad here. And I think that was pretty apparent right around the middle of the season. And then it just became more and more clear that, like, the baton has way since been passed to Puka Nacua as the number one receiver on this team. And I mean, he is the guy that, like, if you want to say he's a top whatever dynasty receiver, like, I'm not going to fight you about it. I've got him firmly in my second tier of dynasty receivers. I think he is just to circle back on the St. Brown point that you made, the comparison with these two guys, and I'm sure teams are kicking themselves for not drafting these guys. There's so many teams out there that would have effed up those players, though. They would have messed up the deployment of those players. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown was playing outside at USC, right? And he was kind of a big outbreaking route receiver for USC, but just had so many clear skills on his game film that he could be this power slot type, and that's what he's become in Detroit. But like I said, he was cooking on those man press routes last night too. Like, I'm not putting any limits on what that guy can be. And with Puka Nacua too, a guy that I think could have been easily mis-scouted as like a little, gadgety slot receiver guy because they gave him rush attempts, stuff like that. But then he would not be this fully expressed for what he is as a player anywhere else, I think, other than LA. And that's no shot to Puka. It's just the reality of him being placed in a perfect spot.
And because both St. Brown and Nacua are target hogs, they're such great players for your fantasy composition because it's consistency. I mean, every week St. Brown is in double-digit points, and Nacua is just going to be somebody who absorbs 9 to 13 targets pretty much every week. And just one more smiley face to throw on this game before we move on. Wouldn't you want to play for Dan Campbell or Sean McVay, right? I mean, you and Sean McVay would be best friends if you guys met. Because
I don't know. I don't know about that. He's got a lot of energy. I got energy for this.
I think Matt Harmon has a lot of energy. Is that not fair? Anyway, okay, well, whatever. You don't have to be best friends, but I think you guys would click in a certain way because of breaking down film and understanding the nuances of a route. And Dan Campbell just makes you want to run through the wall. Yeah. Dan Campbell makes you want to give more than you realize you had to give for the team, and it's fun. I'm sorry the Rams had to lose because I'm going to miss them, and I'm cannot be more excited for another Lions home game. And that 80% swag rate that I saw last week, I think this week it's going to be 100%. I think they're just going to make everybody is going to have to wear Lions stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. We don't know right now as we're taping this who they're playing next week, but I can't wait to see that game, and I feel like they should be pretty heavily favored over either of those teams that we're going to watch later on Monday. Yeah, whether I would be best friends with Dan Campbell or Sean McVay, I don't know about that, but I would love to work for those guys, and if they were like a head coach of my team, I'd be feeling great about it. By the way, this losing team, we're talking about the Rams here. We're going to transition to the next game here. I don't know about you, Scott, but I feel like that's the last time I'm going to be like, yeah, this team that lost this weekend on Saturday or Sunday, I think they can walk into the offseason with their head held high. Yes. There's a final losing team we will be able to say that about. And that transitions perfectly to Packers 48, Cowboys 32. Before we go all in on the Cowboys, like every other sports media, show is going to be doing today. I mean, producers woke up this morning with smiles on their face at 4 a.m., whatever.
Not all producers, Matt.
Well, not all producers, not our producer Colin, but almost every other producer woke up with a big smile because, man, the Cowboys click and Cowboys hate definitely clicks. Okay, so we will get to the Cowboys, but let's start with the Packers here because, again, what I said about the Lions perfectly is demonstrated here in Green Bay as well, where this is a group that drafted extremely well, right? All of these young skill position players. But my personal opinion, I said this on Twitter last night, this whole season has been a masterclass by Matt LaFleur. Even when they weren't winning games, the patience that he exhibited with all of these young players, Jordan Love and all these receivers, the tight ends and all that stuff, when they were making mistakes, and like a lesser coach could have been like, I thought this to myself, actually, like not even watching this game a couple hours before it. Imagine if Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback for this team and he had all these young players making these mistakes, right? Like all these young receivers. How many times would, Dontavian Wicks, who looks awesome right now, but it was running routes at the wrong depth, was in the right place, was dropping pass. How fast would Aaron Rodgers have iced him out, right? Or like gone to Matt LaFleur and be like, we got to get this guy off the field for, Randall Cobb or whatever. That was the old Packers. This Packers, though, again, it's been a LaFleur masterclass from start to finish. And last night, I think, was the full kind of like everybody's got to take a look at it. And that's why I want to focus on the winners here, because that's what I want to talk about from this game, not necessarily just what everybody else is going to say about Dallas.
Matt LaFleur is the great NFL coach that isn't thrown around as the genius the way Mike McDaniel is, the way Sean McVay is, the way Andy Reid is. And granted, McVay and Reid have won Super Bowls and they're deeper into their careers. So LaFleur has time to build a resume. But even when the Packers hit a lull, he was very calm. We're okay. We're young. We're getting better. And just look at the heater that Love's been on the last few months. It was like 21 touchdowns and 1 pick or 2 picks or something like that. He's been incredible with such a young receiver room. They kick the snot out of Dallas and they get nothing. Green Bay gets nothing out of Jaden Reed, gets nothing out of Christian Watson. I still wonder down the road, do you need to have that one big monster receiver, or can you have a bunch of B and B plus guys? I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Nice to see Aaron Jones healthy again. You can never plan this way, but Aaron Jones being hurt and resting and sitting and be on the injury report and do I start him? Do I sit him? All that stuff. It was all worth it to get to the playoffs and have a healthy Aaron Jones and unleash him. Does Green Bay love playing in Dallas, man? They own Jerry World, right? I mean, They've won 6 straight games, I think, in AT&T Stadium. And
I saw a stat that they have won more playoff games in AT&T Stadium than the Dallas Cowboys have.
That's great. Yeah. It's like they used to be the stat that Ben Roethlisberger had more wins in the home stadium than any other quarterback for the Browns or something like that. And, yeah, I'm not looking forward to unpacking the Browns, but it's just unfair, man. I know this has been said a million times, but Brett Favre, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, Aaron Rodgers, kind of a little bit of a knucklehead at times, but Hall of Famer, eventually Super Bowl champion. He's won a bunch of MVPs. And now they hand the baton off to Jordan Love. And now I think it's pretty obvious. We know. I don't care what. Next week, the Packers are playing the Niners. The Niners are a ridiculously good football team. They'll be rested. Maybe Green Bay loses. Maybe they lose by a lot. I think the spread came out 9.5 was the early number we saw. But Jordan Love's good. Maybe Jordan Love's really good. Imagine if this receiver room gets better. They have the coach. This is a team. We talk about this all the time. We talk about Houston. They'll get the coach right, get the quarterback right. Green Bay's got the coach and quarterback right. These guys aren't going anywhere for the next 10 years. They're set up to be really, really good. And this was a year where the defense has been a mess. And is the coordinator right? And I know Dallas put up a ton of garbage points and yards in this game. It's hard to know what all that really means. Still, there's going to be changes on the Packers defense. But you get the coach right, you get the quarterback right, you're going to go a long way. And I don't know. Again, I always defer to you on receiver analysis with scouting and stuff because you do so much great work with that. We know Christian Watson had an exciting rookie season. He was hurt much of this year. It's almost like he hasn't even been on the team. Jaden Reed's been exciting at times. He's been hurt at times. He's not really a target hog. Dobbs just had the best game of his career in this win. They have a couple of interesting tight ends. So it's going to be, if you want to get Packers exposure next year, you're going to have so many different choices because they're going to be draftable players. And yet I feel like anybody you draft has zero floor either. It's going to be hard to figure it out. But bottom line, man, Jordan Love's good. Matt LaFleur is just a guy who's, I heard people talking as crazy as this was in October. Is Matt LaFleur in trouble? No, Matt LaFleur's not in trouble. He's one of the right answers. There's like 6 or 7 teams in the NFL that are like, yeah, we got our guy and he's going to be here 5 years from now. That's Matt LaFleur.
That is Matt LaFleur, man. Yeah. And it was like the first couple of games, specifically the Bears win and then the Falcons game that they had earlier this year, where again, the offense was not what it looks like right now from a results standpoint. And even the results from a record standpoint wasn't great at large parts of the year. I think they were like 2-5 at one point. But even as you were watching, you're like, these play designs and these play calls are great. And it does take so many of these guys are, they're buying their own hype from an offensive play caller perspective. I'm not saying that this was the wrong decision because they won a Super Bowl, but a large part of what Sean McVay looked at with the quarterback situation was my offense is so good and Jared Goff is not the guy to execute it. I need somebody else to take it to the next level. Right. And that is in essence buying your own hype. And again, I'm not hating on Sean McVay for doing that. I think he even has said, especially in the wake of all this stuff this past week, I wish I had handled the Jared Goff divorce a little bit better because he was just outwardly expressing how much he was just done with Jared Goff. But that is in essence buying your own hype. I think a guy like Matt LaFleur parts of this year could have been these play calls are excellent. This is dialed up the exact right ways it should be. And these GD young players just can't figure it out. These guys can't, I got to do something else. I got to pull some of these guys off the field. And the patience, that takes a special person and a special coach, I think, to stick through that. So all hats off to him for sure. Just to circle 2 points on the Packers before we move to the Cowboys here. One, we're going to have all offseason to talk about this receiver room, so I don't want to get too deep into it here, but I definitely think that Jaden Reed could be a 1. I think Dontavian Wicks could be a 1. That guy is really good. His route on the touchdown is, Jordan Love throwing another fadeaway pass. I mean, that was beautiful to give him the window for his quarterback to throw that in complete chaos, to trust that receiver. There's definitely something I think special brewing there. Those guys I think could end up being, really good, number 1 receivers potentially. But even if they don't, even if they top out as just really good, you have so many guys you can throw at it. I don't know if they need another receiver, but I mean, Romeo Doubs, if everybody hits their ceiling, I think Romeo Doubs is probably their 4th best receiver. And he was awesome on Sunday, legitimately awesome, cooking guys. And with the routes were perfectly called, the defense was bad, but he was executing those plays to perfection. So I think this receiver room, I would just let all these guys grow and develop. And lastly, I'm glad you mentioned Aaron Jones because I don't know what the hell the Packers are going to do next year. I think they need to I'm not saying they need to cut Aaron Jones. They need to like add a running back, I think, to take some work off of him, because my God, when he's in there, the offense is just straight up different. This is a guy that, asked to take a pay cut in the offseason. Some of the like fan websites are trying to say we're ready to move on from Aaron Jones, but man, he's a difference maker. And that guy's a great, great human being. I've had the pleasure of interviewing and talking to him a couple times. We've had him on Eckler's show before. He's just awesome. Like, I'm so happy for Aaron Jones that he's having this moment. Let's talk Cowboys here.
Hang on just 1 second.
Go for it.
Two really quick things. Aaron Jones turned 29 in December. So he's just really at that dangerous age where it's hard to try. It used to be 30 was the age you backed off running backs, but now that talent comes into the league at an earlier juncture, it's just 28, 29. We're getting nervous. What do we do with Derrick Henry? What do we do with Aaron Jones? So he's going to be a very difficult guy to figure out. But I'm with you, man. He every time I hear him interviewed, I'm like, this guy gets it. He's a get it guy, and I'm always in his corner. He's played really well against Dallas. He went to UTEP, so what a big win for him. I love LaFleur. Nobody does this anymore, it feels like. But they won the toss and they said, we're taking the ball. And they went down and they scored and they set a tone right away. And I talk about this with Frank Schwab a little bit. Yeah, it probably makes sense to defer in most sequences, but I don't think it's always the right move. And I love that Green Bay said, you know what? The best part of our team is the offense, and we can move the ball on Dallas. We're going to take the ball and be up 7-0. How do you like that? Because most coaches just defer automatically. And I love that LaFleur was willing to do something. It's easy to say because they scored a touchdown, but he wasn't afraid to do something that now is a little bit unorthodox.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point. Another feather just in the LaFleur cap. I tell you what, you're ready to overdraft Puka next year. I can't wait to draft Packers next year. And like I said, we're going to have all offseason to like fight about which of these receivers is the best and blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what, I want exposure in 2024 fantasy football to some of these receivers and Jordan Love. Like, I think this is an offense that could really take the next step.
Arrow is pointed up for sure.
Screaming upward trajectory. The Cowboys, not on a screaming upward trajectory.
The Cowboys, yeah.
Jeez, okay. God almighty. Jerry Jones said after the game that this might be like the most disappointing playoff loss that he's ever been a part of.
Big statement.
And big statement, because there's been a lot of them.
Get out the book. Get out the book of Dallas disappointing playoff losses. It's time to make another entry.
But it is pretty rough, man. I don't even know what to say, Scott. This is a group that just looked completely unprepared for the moment, unprepared for what the Packers were going to do. And the Packers didn't do anything different that they've been doing all year. And it's a defense that they should have been able to exploit. But, really early on, it was right on my radar right away, like the run pass stuff, that was going on. Like you talked about the Lions leaning into who they were, right? Like when in that win. It felt like the Cowboys were doing the opposite early, and it just completely snowballed from there.
They looked like a boxer who gets hit by a flurry in the first round and said, wait a minute, what happened? I did not expect this. I thought this was going to be more of a stylistic fight, and I'm just getting punched in the mouth. CeeDee Lamb had a couple of not the most accurate passes in the world, but passes he always catches that he didn't. Dak looked dazed. Tony Pollard looked like the same mediocre back he's been all year. And this game goes down as the classic garbage time game of all time because Dallas wins the box score, right? Dak throws for over 400 and Lamb has a monster game and Ferguson. And I love that Jake Ferguson scored 3 touchdowns and he never looked excited after any of them because he knew they were probably going to lose anyway. And I think players should do that. You shouldn't act like you just won the Super Bowl when you score a touchdown to get within 20. So I appreciated that maybe awareness of Ferguson. But Dallas has to ask themselves, who are we? Who's in charge of us? Do we have the right coach? Do we have the right quarterback? Do we have the right running back? We know they have the right guy in Lamb. I'm a Dak player, but at least they have to have kind of some conversations of what is his upside? Can we get there with Dak? The problem is that the only thing worse than maybe keeping Dak to some people who don't like him would be how do you replace him? Because there's just not adequate replacements, right? You can't. If your quarterback is a B or a B plus, you don't want to kick him to the curb because you're going to replace him with a C minus. That's just the way quarterbacks work. There aren't that many right answers here, but I don't know how. I like Mike McCarthy. I think I was talking with Schwab about it, and Schwab said he thinks McCarthy gets a bad rap, and he thinks he's a good coach in most ways. And I said I agree with that, but I also think when you're really close to the sun, when all the chips are in the middle, I just don't trust Mike McCarthy. I think he's a good coach on October 17th. I think he's a good coach on November 15th. I don't trust him in that really, really big moment. And it just so happens, unfortunately for McCarthy, This is a rare offseason where a couple of coaching stars are available. Belichick's available. Vrabel's available. And it just, I know it's the most convenient thing in the world, but it just seems like a perfect helicopter spot. Tom Brady got out of New England. He needed to be supported by better infrastructure. He went to Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin wins the Super Bowl. Bill Belichick, he's not going to win with Mac Jones. He's not going to win with Bailey Zappi. Could he win in Dallas? I sure think so. And maybe he's ready to finally give up all the personnel control that he's wanted. It's just a broken model. No coach should really get that anymore. I can't imagine how Belichick to the Cowboys wouldn't happen.
Yeah, even Vrabel too. Like, if I was a Cowboys fan, I think I'd almost rather have Mike Vrabel than Bill Belichick, which is crazy just because Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. But I feel like it's pretty close. And I'm with you that it is just rough timing for Mike McCarthy to have this game in the wild card round when those guys are available. I mean, even Pete Carroll's like not available, but available, right? So there is that part of it. And it's rough, man. Like it just, to me, if they have a Belichick, if they have a Vrabel, they might not win this game because the Packers are a good team and they deserve their flowers, but I just don't think they come in that flat, that unprepared. And like,
there you go.
Again,
they looked like they didn't know the test was today. They walked into class and they're handing out the test. What? The test is today? We're playing today? I thought we were playing on Monday. I thought this game got pushed back because of snow. No. You're playing today. And they showed up to this game an hour and a half late.
Yeah. And I don't want to let the players off the hook, right? Like,
no, for sure.
You can't make some of those throws, like, period. And definitely like you just have to wonder if everything does kind of rot from the top. And I mean, that even might go beyond Mike McCarthy, right? If we're talking about rotting from the top, because it's just, this is the same season every year. And this year it did, admittedly, and I'm sure I felt this way, it felt different at times. Like, this Cowboys team is different. I'm sure maybe I even said that on this damn podcast, but it's not. It was different. It actually ended in a more embarrassing fashion. You didn't even get to the 49ers, right? Like Michael Parsons on his podcast, like, yeah, we'll see them again. Just wait till we see them again. You didn't even get there.
I mean, it feels a little worse. Charlie Brown football, right? You know, Lucy's holding it. Here we go. Kick the football, and then they yank it away. Man, it was a bad weekend for a couple of really highly respected defensive coordinators, Dan Quinn being one of them. The idea was, where's Dan Quinn going to go? Does Seattle want Dan Quinn? Is Dan Quinn a hot head coach? I know Colin had talked to him before the season. I had just thrown out, just totally spitballing, that maybe Belichick for the Cowboys would make sense down the road. And he said, yeah, I see that, but I wonder if Quinn would be the guy who they would go to if McCarthy didn't work out. This might have been Dan Quinn's like Matt Patricia Super Bowl game, right? Where it's like he couldn't stop Nick Foles. You know, it's like, do you really want to hire him? I wonder what this is going to do to Quinn's cred. And it was shocking how open some of these passes. You know, granted, Love had a great game. A couple of the throws were really tight windows, and a couple of the throws were like, where's the defender? I can't see what happened here. Miscommunication. I never know when plays work like that. I never know how much of it is the design and how much of it is the defense just screwing up. And that's one of the hardest things to do in football. How much is credit? How much is blame? And all that stuff. But man, Dallas has to do something different. They are not. Here's the thing. Jerry Jones is not going to lose the same way. If he's going to lose, he's going to lose with something different. So maybe Belichick's the short-term guy. Maybe Vrabel will be a long-term guy. I would certainly call Pete Carroll and take his temperature, but they have to do something different. They can't. The Buccaneers had to let go of Tony Dungy to get to Gruden to win the Super Bowl. The Red Sox had to fire Grady Little for malpractice, and the next year they got Tito Francona. They won a World Series. This is a great job because if you come in and win, you're set up to win with this team, with this infrastructure, with all the resources they have in Dallas. It's an attractive place for free agents and all that stuff. And if you win, they'll build a statue of you.
Yep, I'm with you. It's an attractive spot for sure. When Schefter reported that, there's a mystery team that might get involved with Bill Belichick that hasn't fired its head coach. I mean, this was the obvious one to think about. So they're in for a long offseason of questions. You know, certainly by the time you're listening to this, we might have news about Mike McCarthy. So I don't know. Let's move on back to Saturday, starting with the first game, actually. Texans 45, Browns 14. And I mean, Scott, this is what having I'm ready to say some like dangerous, irresponsible stuff about how good CJ Stroud is. So I'm hoping you're willing to do the same thing. But like, my big takeaway from this game is, you know what, Dalton and I broke down like all of the matchups, right, that were in Cleveland's favor and all this stuff on paper. Like, the cover one stuff, the cover one splits with CJ Stroud, the Joe Flacco play action versus the Texans defense. Like, so many things pointed this game like, oh wow, Houston might have Cleveland might have an advantage. But you know what Houston has? They have a difference maker at quarterback, and that can be like not just the equalizer, but like the full field tilter.
You know, it was crazy. I read this in the Peter King column. Stroud and Love had almost identical stats. It was really, really eerie. I think there's like maybe 2 yards of difference, but they had the same attempts, the same completions.
Yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. 16 completions, 21 attempts, 272 and 3 for Jordan Love, and CJ Stroud, 16 to 21, 274 and 3 touchdowns. The passer rating is literally 157.2 for both.
Right. Unfortunately, Stroud had that late incompletion. No picks, of course, but that cost him the perfect 158.3. I love that. That's the perfect quarterback rating. I don't know why it's 158.3, but I love it. Talked about LaFleur and Love having the coach and quarterback right. No team made a bigger stride from we're so down bad to look at us. We're a problem for the next 10 years than the Texans. DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud. Thank you, Carolina. A lot of people question pushing all the chips in for Will Anderson. That certainly looks validated now. And just a fun off, Nico Collins. I know you and I have always been near the front of the Nico Collins bandwagon. What a great season he's had. And they've made Singletary into their primary back. Houston's a fun team, man. And I give them a chance against anybody. I don't care where they have to go. We don't know yet, but Stroud he's accurate. He's poised. When a play breaks down, he looks to throw downfield and step on your throat. And it's hard sometimes when we see guys play in college and they don't have to navigate a lot of muddy pockets. And it's a lot of, we always talk about Ohio State. It's royalty for receivers and Brian Hartline and all that stuff. And guys are wide open. We all know the receivers he's been throwing to. So it's hard to tell how good the player is. And CJ Stroud goes to Houston. It's like, oh, wait, where'd Chris Olave go? Where'd Garrett Wilson go? But he's turned Nico Collins, who was interesting already, Michigan, into a star. And he's made it work with the other guys who are good, maybe not great players. I'd like to see Tank Dell come back healthy next year. But very early in this season, we talk about rewatching the games and trying to figure out stuff. When I wanted to cleanse my palate, I would put on the Stroud games because he's never harried. He's never frenetic. He's never, some of these quarterbacks, they get the idea they had 5 cups of coffee right before the game. I never feel that way with Stroud. He's always poised. And that's just one of those things. It's just so funny that the teams found reasons to not like him before the draft. He didn't do well on this test, that he's not going to handle stress well. I can't think of 2 or 3 quarterbacks that handle stress better than he does.
That is put that on your Hall of Fame resume, Scotty, because like that is a perfect way of describing CJ Stroud. Like, he doesn't play like he's had those 3 cups of coffee before the game. Like I talk about, there's a lot of quarterbacks, like it somehow feels like they're playing frenetic and jittery and like they're over caffeinated, but also need to speed it up. Like CJ Stroud is always on time. He's always cool and collected in chaos, which is something that we didn't get to see a lot of him in college, which is crazy to think that the scouting report on him, like the comparison was maybe a slightly more mobile, more creative Jared Goff. And imagine Goff's a really good player and he has a lot of arm talent, but like he's so good right now because he's seen everything and he's like been in the league for a while. Like I think the mind has really caught up for Jared Goff. Imagine when like CJ Stroud's catalog of what he's seen at the pro level catches up with how just damn like good he is as a raw talent. I mean, it's going to be incredible. I think he's, like I said, I'm ready to say some like irresponsible stuff about how good CJ Stroud is right now, and I think he deserves it. Nico Collins is a stud. Like, he's not a Stroud creation. I've been banging on that drum for a long, long time. But man, these two guys they see the game the same way. They're a perfect fit for each other. That's incredible. Before we move to the Browns here, I feel like I have to ask you, Scott, how many quarterbacks in the NFL, if you like, would you just take straight up over CJ Stroud, right? Like for the future, I'm going to talk about like, I don't know, today, or if you had to win a game tomorrow, but like who you could build around. Like, how many other quarterbacks are you taking over CJ Stroud? Like, is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 2? Where are you at?
It was definitely a one-hand count. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and then, maybe Josh Allen, maybe not. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think
I'm
right
over the moon.
you.
Bill James, the great baseball stat guy, has a concept called signature significance, which is that we usually want large samples of data to find out anything conclusive. And you don't want to get over your skis on small samples of data. But when a small sample of data is when the magnitude of it is significant, like if a baseball pitcher makes his debut and he strikes out 17 guys and he throws a no-hitter, it's impossible to conclude that he's anything less than great because an average player just can't do that. The season that Stroud had, it's a signature significance to it. You can't say, oh, let's see what he does next year. Defenses will adjust. They have all offseason. No. You can't have this season and not be great.
Perfectly said. I think that's a perfect way to say it. On the Browns, to me, this, Scott, just felt like the end of a summertime romance. You all know what I'm talking about. Like, you've had those, right? Like,
felt inevitable.
Hey, man, yeah, this is a great time, but it's going to end at some point, right? And that was the Browns' run with Joe Flacco. Once they fell behind and, Flacco throws 2 pick sixes, it just is what it is. Like, even he at some point, like, starts checking the ball down because he doesn't want to get hit, the whole thing. It burned bright and it burned beautifully. And I freaking loved the Browns Joe Flacco run. That was awesome. It brought like life into a franchise that's tough to talk about because of the Deshaun Watson stuff. It made them fun. I think it's got to be some of the most enjoyable weeks of Kevin Stefanski coaching because of just how perfectly Flacco executed his offense. But now that summertime romance is over. They're boarding up windows at the shop on the boardwalk. They're closing down, the damn ice cream stands and the cabana bars and the whole thing at the beach. And like, now it's weird to say, because now I think, Flacco's not, I mean, he even said after the game, he doesn't even know if he wants to keep playing, right? Like, I don't know if he's coming back to the Browns, anything like that. Now I think they walk into a very, I don't know, uncomfortable, but difficult offseason of like, okay, our team is really good. How do we get the quarterback play that we got from Flacco consistently out of Deshaun Watson? And is that possible?
And that's the best analogy I've heard all year. This was definitely they were never going to, you can't marry Joe Flacco. They were just going to date him and have a fling and have a little bit of fun. And they had it. And now it's September. It's time to go back to school. And it was fun. And, we'll write. Maybe you won't write. We'll see each other over break. Maybe you won't. It doesn't matter. We'll always remember that Joe Flacco moment. What did Joe Flacco do? He brought out great football from Amari Cooper. He brought out a run from David Njoku, who was 7 for 93 on 11 targets in this game. And Njoku's last 5 games, 35 catches, 466 yards, 4 touchdowns. I know the full season pace is, it's unrealistic, a little bit intellectually false, but that would be 119, 1584, and 13.5 touchdowns. David Njoku's a monster who just needs a quarterback willing to pull the trigger, willing to see what the throw is, what the defensive look is. We knew this Joe Flacco thing was going to end this way. Again, Schwab and I were talking about it. At some point, he's going to pumpkin. He pumpkined in this game. It's okay. That happens. Nobody thought the Browns were going to go to the Super Bowl. I think the Browns felt like a team that could beat anybody and could probably get dump trucked by anybody if Flacco ran out of juice. And that's what happened in this game. It's okay. I'm so excited for Njoku. I want Njoku to have a good quarterback. I don't care who it is. Can they fix Watson? Can they fix confidence? Is Deshaun Watson redeemable? I don't know. For the Browns to get in the playoffs, they had to hire a guy off his couch who's 1 million years old and accept that Flacco was going to throw a pick or two every game. They're like, okay, that's all right. Just press the ball down the field. Just play quarterback like somebody who's been in the league for 15 years, has seen every blitz, and knows what to do. And then sits up the final game. They gave him the bonus anyway. And Flacco has to feel satiated by this. I remember Boomer Esiason had a really good run his final career, where he got plugged into play for the Bengals, Corey Dillon's rookie year, and Esiason had some huge games, 6 or 7 game run. It was awesome. Actually, much better than what Flacco just did. And the Bengals said, let's run it back next year. And Esiason got offered the Monday Night Football job. He thought, I had my final fling. I'm going to go, live the rest of my life. And, I'll always enjoy what Flacco just did for us. But it felt, as you said so eloquently, there was an inevitability to the end of this.
Yeah, I just think that what this showed is that this is a good offense with good players, and Njoku and Amari, like all these guys, they were so banged up on the offensive line too. And, the defense definitely floundered in this moment. Like Bobby Slowick put on a hell of a resume for a potential. I said in this, in the preview of this show, like was he like a season away from being a great head coaching candidate? I thought maybe, but then when he wasn't like run pass in this game, which had been kind of the one nit you could pick in his in his resume there as Houston's play caller, he got away from that. And like, you could see just what this offense looks like when it's fully expressed like that. So Slowick might be a guy who's hired by the end of this damn podcast because he was that good.
He solved the Schwartz defense, and Schwartz had no second option. Schwartz didn't adjust. Schwartz didn't make changes. He said, no, we'll keep doing what we're doing. And Houston said, well, we've solved this. It's, man, I was anticipating a competitive game. I wasn't expecting this to be a blowout, but the thing that shocked me is I just didn't think the Cleveland defense could get embarrassed the way it was.
Yeah, this was the most stunning result to me. I thought the Texans could win, but I thought the Browns had a lot going in their favor and they could definitely keep it competitive. But once the wheels fell off, and it's a harsh ending to the summertime romance with Joe Flacco, but it does. And now it's just going to be a long offseason, man, of can they get Watson to play anything close to that level? But to be fair to Watson, not that I really want to be, but to be fair to Watson, he was playing, I think, solid football like right before he got hurt. But man, I think it's gonna be a long way to get from him where he was to be even just like what Flacco was in this offense. I think there's a long gap to that.
I'm a big Kevin Stefanski guy, but I'm wrong on stuff, and who knows, maybe the Browns fans will throw this in my face. So I'll just get out. If you're a Browns fan, record this and get ready when it looks bad and make me look stupid. That's what people do. I don't think Deshaun Watson's ever going to be a plus quarterback again.
I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen it, man. So I think like you're on the right path at this point, at the very least. I said this was a surprising result. I think probably the least surprising result of the weekend to me was Chiefs 26, Dolphins 7. Don't have a ton to say about the Chiefs. Like, they were what they really have been all year. Isaiah Pacheco running really hard in the snow. Rashee Rice just dominating on in-breaking routes. I mean, it's crazy. Like, he only runs 2 routes, but man, he's really good on those 2 routes, and he's really good with the ball in his hands, and he's just perfectly unleashed. That's I don't want to yada yada over the Rashee Rice stuff because it is a huge hat tip to the player and to this team. Like, I posted the route chart from SMU and how he was running like all goes and hitches as an outside X receiver for his final year in college. And it just looks nothing like what he's doing in the pros, which is crazy to see. Travis Kelce dropped a few balls. Again, it was a lot of some of the same frustrations from the Chiefs, but some of those same moments that, you love out of Mahomes, you love out of Rashee Rice. And again, I think Pacheco ran really well in this game too. And the defense really, like, this is a team that I think can go as far as their defense wants to take them.
It's so weird to see the Chiefs be such a boring team. 6.4 yards per attempt for Mahomes. Rice is a big win, and he's Five Guys burgers and fries, right? You don't go into Five Guys and look at the menu; you're getting a burger. That's what they make. That's Rashee Rice. You're not getting the chicken nuggets. You're not getting the chicken Alfredo, or you're not getting something off the menu, the chicken parm, whatever. I guess. Yeah,
don't think about that hot dog that Five Guys has. Like, maybe it's good, I don't know, but you just get.
Nobody's ever ordered that hot dog for sure. But real Rice is the big win of their season is that they figured out what Rice is, and he went from a frustratingly underused asset and a rotational player to now. We're at the point now where teams are thinking Rashee Rice is the guy to mark, and his receiver props are higher than Kelsey's. And man, the Chiefs, such a weird time for them. I know it was a poor weather game. It was a streaming game. People were like, "Oh, do I want to pay for the streaming or not?" Obviously, Taylor Swift's there. You're dancing in the suite and all that. It's still frustrating for me to watch this offense not have that vertical component and feel like I'd be shocked. And again, the Chiefs fans are going to be all over me if they find a way to get to the Super Bowl. I just don't think the Chiefs have it in them. There's other teams in the conference who are better. They were set up to beat a Miami team that's a total fish out of water, obviously. This is the game. I think most people saw the game like this. The Chiefs will win a boring game and probably cover. Will probably go under, and that's what happened.
Yep, I felt like they could definitely win this game. I'm a little skeptical if they can win next week. We'll see what happens with Kansas City. Miami, again, another team. These last 3 teams, this is always the case when you lose in the playoffs for the most part. Like, got to face a lot of difficult questions here in the offseason, right? There's going to be the Tua questions. It just, the way this offense sputtered at the end, it was like, even when they had good moments, like, yeah, it's a good offense, but it wasn't like, this is an offense people were talking about at the beginning of the season. Do they need a nickname, right? Like, are they so good that they need a nickname? I don't think so. With the way this season ended, we know that we knew that the defense was going to have issues because of all the injuries they had there, and they have their injury issues on offense as well. And we knew that it was going to be tough for them to play in this weather. We knew all that stuff. Still, Scott, I come out of this game being so disappointed in the offensive performance from this team. The way that they don't have answers seemingly when they're counterpunched. And like Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator that I don't think gets enough credit just because he's been around for so long. But I mean, he just did what you do against Miami. You are disciplined on the outside zone runs and you clog the middle of the field with like, they did a lot of like drop stuff with the safeties and took away that middle of the field. And this is a team that just can't push the ball outside the numbers consistently. And I think some of that does come. I love Tua. Another guy I've talked to and is just a gem, wonderful guy, easy to root for, but it does feel like we're slamming on a ceiling right now. It's very similar to, I think, the Rams, McVay, Goff dynamic. I wonder where the Dolphins go next with this.
I'm with you on Tua, by the way. When he's interviewed, he gives very thoughtful answers. They ask him a question, and he composes his thoughts and then says something really interesting. A lot of interviews are just so boilerplate, and the players know what they're supposed to say. And I love Tua interviews, and you see him, he's got the guitar in the background. I mean, he seems like somebody who plays guitar, somebody who probably writes poetry. It's interesting when him and Justin Herbert were coming out, they were like, oh, is Justin Herbert too much of a introvert or too much of an empath to be a successful quarterback? And I wonder if Tua is too much of a regular person to maybe be great. But if I told you in September we're going to get Dolphins Chiefs playoffs, like, oh, cool, first team to 40 wins.
Yeah,
and more like, first team to 17 wins, or in this case 10 would do
first
it.
First team to 10.
Yeah, first team 10 wins. But this offense doesn't need a nickname. What a strange season, right? I mean, Mostert has this year out of nowhere. He's always been a good player, but he's in his 30s. He's interviewed or worked out for pretty much every team in the league. I don't know how you could draft him at face value next year. Achant's always going to be a player you worry about. What is his touch ceiling? Really down year for Jalen Waddle. I want to give him a pass because he was hurt much of the year. I mean, he was going in the second round of drafts last year. I don't know where the heck you take him, and I'm not looking forward to having. I was hoping that we solved Tua's good. McDaniel's good. Tyreek Hill is. He's somebody changes the. Every team has to defend the Dolphins, petrified that Tyreek Hill is going to get past them on every play. Guys are wide open in this off. I don't know. It was just so nice when the Dolphins were one of those fun Monday morning watches, and I never saw them shifted to an offense that I really struggle to watch right now.
I think the answer to those, like, are they good? Like, yeah, these guys are good, but how good? And that isn't really a question that we need to ask ourselves when we're doing like fantasy football analysis. Cause like, I mean, with some of these players, you're right. Actually, like with Raheem Mostert, where are we drafting him? Like Devon Achane, where the hell are we drafting that guy? Like even Jalen Waddle, like what? Yeah, there were a lot of injuries, but why could they never really consistently get him activated? Even in this game, right? Like they could not consistently get him activated. Is that a coaching thing? Is it a quarterback thing? Is it what's the reason for that? Is he a guy that is a little bit more capped from a ceiling perspective? These are questions we'll definitely ask in fantasy, but like by and large, like you want pieces of this offense. I'm certainly going to be drafting Tyreek Hill again, whatever, but it's just like this time of year question that we have about the Dolphins, which is really important for the future of their franchise.
It's interesting. Before the year, they looked like one of the tightest concentration offenses, one of those narrow trees. And you see how wide the concentration was in this loss. That just shows you McDaniel's looking for answers, right? He couldn't find. Waddle's not his regular speed. And, they're targeting Cedric Wilson 7 times, and they're throwing their tight ends a little bit.
Just to stick on that too, like it's one thing when I get on Eric Bieniemy for like the phone book in Washington, but like at least some of those players, like I think De'Ami Brown's like a pretty good player. Like we like
Curtis
Logan
Samuel,
Thomas
sure.
is a good player. Of course, I love Curtis Samuel. Like these are a lot of really interesting names. We're getting like River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios, like that's a lot of like whoa, down the roster there.
Right, guys, you wouldn't be surprised if they were game day scratches. They're drawing 5 targets in this game. It's like, well, it's McDaniel feels like a guy who walked into the bus station and his bus already left, and he had to find another way to get to Chicago. So, oh, wait a minute, what do I do? Can I take this and reroute here? Can I try this? Can I try this? What happened? I thought I was just taking the Tyreek Hill Express to Chicago. No, you need something else.
Well, Scott, I think that is going to do it for now. This pod ended up being a little longer than I anticipated it, but you know what? These were 4 really, like I said, one great game, 3 other games too that had a lot of interesting takeaways and things we're going to be talking about all off season. So appreciate you breaking it down, buddy.
It was fun.
That is going to do it for now. Be sure to check out part 2 of our wild card round recap after Eagles-Bucks concludes. We will also do, like I said, a quick look ahead to the divisional round. So be sure to tune in to that podcast, because I can't imagine that those 2 games aren't going to come with some interesting takeaways coming out of them as well. Until then, we're out.